Here we are accomplishing Brightfield color image correction in Camera Raw. These Brightfield images are from pathology slides such as H&E slides. Under File in Photoshop, we're going to browse in Bridge. Bridge is a media manager software that comes with Photoshop. Once in Bridge, I'm in a directory that contains images from a microscopy session. I will use the Shift on my keyboard to select them all. Under File, I'll choose Open in Camera Raw. Once in Camera Raw, I'm in a directory that contains images from a microscopy session. Camera Raw is yet another program that comes with Photoshop. You can see across the bottom that all images were taken manually at the same exposure. Because they are at the same exposure, I can correct all of them at once. I will use the keyboard keys Control+A to select them all. If your images were taken with exposures at an automatic setting, or if you have images that are taken at different magnifications and different exposures, you will work with images one by one. But I'm going to work with all of them, Control+A, to select all of them. Here are the steps. Remember this acronym, SEEBS. Sharpening, if you sharpen. Eyedropper tool, exposure, blacks, and saturation. If you are sharpening, you need to start with the sharpening slider. That slider is under Detail, and you'll click on the chevron. You can use the magnifier tool to zoom in and then adjust the sharpening. If you go too far, the image looks very graphic, and you can actually almost see a white line that's around your features. So you need to back off and minimally sharpen. I'm going to set the sharpening at about 71 and then zoom out. Once I've done the sharpening, I'll close the Detail tab and then open the Basic tab. Next on our list is the eyedropper tool for white balancing. If we click anywhere in a white area, this will change the incorrect colors to correct colors. Now I'm going to adjust the exposure. If I adjust the exposure, I can increase the brightness, but if I go too far, you can see up here in the histogram where there's this triangle, you can see that it has a warning because it turned red. I can back off on the exposure until it turns black, and you can see that the histogram is right up at the edge of the brightest point. Now I'm going to go to blacks and increase the blacks in the darker areas. If I go too far, this turns green, and so I'm going to return it back to when it turns black. That's how I know where to set the blacks. That's how I know where to set the exposure. If I go to saturation, then I can increase the saturation of color. If I go too far, you can see that it turns this awful shade that's very gaudy. If I go too little, it turns the image to a black and white image. If I go visually to a place where I don't see gaudy colors, I'm sitting pretty much at the saturation that I believe is appropriate. In your lab with your PI, you may have another setting that the PI feels is more appropriate, or the pathologist. Now that I've corrected these, I can save all the images to a directory. Make sure you save it to another directory. In this instance, I'm going to choose another directory, which is a temp directory. And then I'll go down and add to the file name corrected, sharpened, so that this is appended to my file name, and then I know that these images are both corrected and sharpened. Under File Extension, I'll choose TIFF to keep all the visual information. If you're in a lab where you have to save as a JPEG, when you save as a JPEG, make sure you choose maximum so that you lose the least amount of information in the file, since a JPEG is a lossy compression. Under color space, I want to be sure that I'm in sRGB, and for the depth, I want to make sure it's 8 bits per channel and not 16 bits per channel, so that these images open in other programs. I will not change the image sizing or the output sharpening since I've already sharpened the image. Now I'll click Save, and it will save all these images down here to that same location, all of them corrected the same way. Instead of saying Done or Open, I'm going to click Cancel. I'm clicking Cancel because if I click Done, all the existing original images will be corrected. I need instead to click Cancel. You may get a second dialog box that asks you if you're sure you want to cancel. Simply say yes. Now you'll see that in the original directory nothing has been changed, but if I go to the other directory, the C temp directory, I'm going to find the images that have been corrected. So in Photoshop, I can open that directory, and here's one of the images that has been corrected.